All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a really core concept in Arabic grammar. Now, on the surface, it can seem kind of complex, but trust me, it's actually built on this incredibly elegant and predictable system. We're talking about the three moods of the present tense verb. So, check this out. In Arabic, the past tense verb is pretty much rock solid. You take a word like kataba, he wrote, and that ending, it's fixed. It doesn't go anywhere. But the present tense, well, that's a different story. It's kind of like a shapeshifter. Its ending, that final little vowel sound, can actually change. And these changes are not random at all. They're what give the verb its different moods, and they pack in some really powerful layers of meaning. So this flexibility is what gives the verb three totally distinct states, or what grammarians like to call moods. And honestly, getting a handle on these three moods, it's the absolute key to unlocking a much deeper level of precision when you're speaking or reading Arabic. Okay, first up, we've got the indicative, or marfu. The easiest way to think about this one, it's the verb's default setting, its natural resting state. This is what you're going to use most of the time for just simple statements of fact. So, for instance, in yaqra'u, which means he reads, that final u sound, that's your big clue. That's the signature of the indicative mood. Next on the list is the subjunctive, or mansub. Now, this mood doesn't just happen on its own. It gets triggered by very specific words, particles, that come right before it. And they're used to show things like purpose or, say, future negation. And that trigger word forces the verb's ending to change from that default u to an a. So, for example, lan yukra'a means he will not read. You see that? That tiny vowel shift carries a ton of weight. And wrapping up our trio is the Jussive, or majzum. This one is used for things like commands, prohibitions, and super commonly for negating something in the past. The ending here is really cool. It's literally cut off. It just becomes silent. And it's marked by that little circle you see called a sukun. So lam yaqra, with that abrupt silent ending, means he did not read. It's a very decisive sound. So you might be wondering, what's actually causing these mood swings in the verb? I mean, the verb isn't just deciding to change on its own, right? Of course not. The answer is all about the little words, the particles, that come right before it. Yeah, the best way to picture it is to think of these particles as little switches. By default, the verb is just hanging out in the indicative state. But then a special particle shows up. If it's a subjunctive particle, click, it flips the verb into the subjunctive mood. If a jussive particle shows up, click, it flips it into the jussive mood. And if there's no particle, well, then there's no change. It really is as simple as that. Okay, now we're getting to the really crucial point. Because right now, you're probably thinking, oh man, do I have to memorize how all 14 forms of the present tense verb change for all three of these moods? I mean, that sounds absolutely daunting. But here's the good news. There is a brilliantly simple system, a kind of cheat code, to unlock the whole thing. Seriously, when you first lay eyes on a full conjugation table, it can be completely overwhelming. It just looks like this giant sea of information that you're somehow supposed to cram into your brain. I mean, look at this. This seems like an insane amount to memorize, doesn't it? Dozens and dozens of different endings to learn. But what if I told you there's a much, much easier way? A way that completely bypasses all of this painful rote memorization. This is where we shift our thinking. The secret isn't to memorize 42 different forms. It's to understand one single system. We're going to take all that complexity and just funnel it down by breaking all 14 verb forms into just 5. That's right, 5 predictable groups, all based on how they end. And here it is. This is it. This is the entire system on one slide. Every single present tense verb, all 14 of them, fits neatly into one of these 5 groups, just based on its ending. And that's the whole key right there. If you know the group, you know the rule. It all clicks into place. All right, so let's put this code to work. Let's see how this powerful system actually works in action. Forget memorizing a giant table. We're just going to apply a few super simple rules. This table just lays it all out beautifully. I mean, just look at how simple this is. For groups 2, 3, and 5, that's 3 out of the 5 groups, the rule is exactly the same. You just drop the final N. That's it. The only real variations you have to think about are group 1, which just changes its final vowel, and the wonderfully stubborn group 4, which, get this, never changes at all. Okay, let's test this out with a real example. Let's take the verb taktubuna. taktubuna, which means you all write. First things first, we just need to figure out which of our 5 groups it belongs to. All right, well, it ends in una, right? So that makes it a textbook group 3 verb. And what's the rule for group 3? It's super simple. Drop the final n and add an aleph for spelling purposes. So taktubuna becomes taktubu. And boom, just like that, you've got the subjunctive and the Jussive form. 0 memorization required. Okay, let's tackle group 1 now. This is an important one because it contains 5 of the most common verb forms you'll ever see. And it's also the only group where there's that tiny little difference between the subjunctive and the jussive moods. So here's how it works. If you put a subjunctive particle in front of naktubu, that final u sound just switches to an a sound. It becomes naktuba. Easy enough. Now, if you use a jussive particle, that final vowel gets cut off completely, and it ends with that silent sukun, naktub. And that's it. That is literally the only distinction you need to remember for the whole system. And hey, here's a little pro tip for you, straight from the source material. If you really want to sound like you know your stuff, the entire mood itself is called Jazm. That little circle symbol, though, that's technically called the alamat as-sukun, which literally means the sign of silence. It's a small distinction, but an important one. And we can't forget our special group 4. These 2 forms, the feminine plurals, are the true rebels of the entire system. Grammarians call them fixed or mabni, which basically just means they never, ever change. Indicative, subjunctive, jussive, it doesn't matter what particle you throw at them, they always, always stay the same. So here's the main takeaway from all of this. What looked like a totally impossible memorization task at the beginning is really just a beautifully logical and predictable system, and it's all built on just 5 simple groups. All you have to do is identify the group, apply its super simple rule, and you can confidently handle any verb in any mood. You know, once you start looking for systems like this, instead of just trying to memorize endless rules, the entire beautiful structure of the Arabic language just opens up in a whole new way. The logic is always there, you just have to know how to look for it. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.